Welcome back to the Zyori podcast. Hello, and thank you for joining us here for episode 66 of the podcast. It is March 25th, 2015, just about 9 o'clock a.m. here on the Pacific Coast. It's a morning podcast today. We're hot off of a fun night of Dota 2 casting. We did the winner bracket finals and the opening round of the lower bracket for the Star Ladder Season 12. China, IG, the first team to qualify. We'll see tomorrow whether it's going to be LGD or Vici that qualifies. So maybe a little bit brain dead after a long night of casting. I got back from Malaysia and I actually avoided the jet lag. Somehow I did it perfectly. Last night I went to, I guess the night before when I got back, I went to bed at like 10:30 or 11, popped up at 8 a.m. and just in time to have to switch my sleep schedule over to China and start my work day at 2 a.m. So the one time that it almost would have been better to be jet lagged, I fought against it, and here we are. So it was a little bit of a tough cast today, but great games. Had a lot of fun casting with LDZ. Been a little while since him and I have been on the mic together. So this podcast, similar to the one about DAC, this is all about Malaysia. We're going to talk all things Major Allstars. We're going to talk about my trip to Malaysia and a couple of little goodies in between. I reckon this one will be at least an hour. If you watched the event at all, or if you tried to watch the event, you're probably a little bit aware of some of the tech issues that we had. If you were following us on Twitter, there were all sorts of weird issues that we came across at the event, and I want to talk about some of them in more detail. We're going to do our best to keep things positive. This podcast is not meant to flame, maybe point out some inefficiencies, some things that could have been done better, but going to try my best to be honest and well-rounded here with all things that we encountered in Malaysia. Before we start talking about the actual event, I do want to preface with just a big shout-out to all of the fans that I met at the event. Really blown away by the amount of passion was out there in just the Dota scene in Malaysia in general. It's actually really, really insane. It reminded me a lot of TI4, honestly. And I remember just being blown away by the passion of people there that were just excited to meet me, excited about Dota, people wanting pictures and autographs, just walking around Seattle and being stopped by random people on the street. It was a really unique experience for me and kind of just changed my perspective on the scene and really gave me a lot of confidence in where Dota was going and, you know, the fans that spend so much time watching Dota every day. And boy, those Malaysian fans, just hardcore. Any opportunity to take a picture, to take some selfies, I signed cell phones, I signed laptops. I even feel bad signing laptops. I just think, have you thought this through? It's like a tattoo. Are you sure you want me to sign your computer? I appreciate that you want my signature, but this is your computer. This is your life and blood. This is your laptop. This is your cell phone, good sir. This is a cell phone case. You want me to sign the phone itself? Oof. Hardcore, absolutely hardcore. And, you know, I have to say that the past month and a half for me has been a little bit difficult. I've talked about it in past podcasts. One of my grandparents just recently passed, and one of my IRL friends from high school died of brain cancer a couple months ago. And it's just been kind of an icky time where I've kind of had trouble motivating myself to do much outside of just casting and kind of the basic stuff that I need to do to you know, keep my job at BTS. But outside of that, I've been spending a lot of time hiding in the darkness, fiending Netflix, and just kind of living that bleh kind of life, you know. So this was just a great event that kind of helped break me out of that funk a little bit. And you know, I've always looked at events as a way to stay motivated. You know, you grind in the offline portion, you get to go to events and meet all the enthusiastic fans, see all your friends, meet the players, and that's just a good way to kind of rejuvenate yourself, kind of rekindle that esports fire a little bit. And this event definitely did that for me. So before we start, I just wanted to say a thank you to all of the people that I met that were very excited and redonkulous. So, all right, let's get straight into it. We arrived at this event a few days early. We had a choice, and the choice was get there like the night before the event starts, NIP style, or get there like 3 days early and have some downtime to chill before the event actually gets going. So I opted for the former. I've already forgotten which order I had that in. I'm already brain dead today. I opted for going early. I was like, guys, why don't we just go a little bit early? We'll see Malaysia. Winter's there. We can hang out with him. We can check out the LAN cafes. Everyone talks about the SEA pubs being so terrible. I need a taste of this. Let's do it. I'm ready to grind. So we got in a few days early, checked into our hotel. Everything was fine. The organizers picked us up from the hotel. No problems getting there. We just had a nice quick flight, LAX straight to Hong Kong, then direct from Hong Kong straight to Kuala Lumpur. One stop, easy peasy, no problemo. I got to see the Invasion LAN Cafe. That was a lot of fun. Got to meet Winter's parents.
I actually went out to dinner with Winner's parents, and you know, it's just different. It was amazing, but there was one point in the meal when his dad just casually turned. We're not talking about Dota. We're just talking about sort of general food and just they know David Parker pretty well and just asking about what he's been up to, how the studio's going, stuff like that. And Winner's dad just turns to me and goes, "So, how's the Western Shuffle going?" And I wish I had a picture of my face, because Parker said my expression was just completely dumbfounded, just completely. How do you know about the Western Shuffle, good sir? I didn't know how to reply. I have never met someone who is at the age of my parents that follows the Dota scene close enough to ask a question of such magnitude, of such detail, that requires an intricate answer for you to know the players. And I'm thinking, does this guy know teams? Does he know players? Like, if I say, like, some specific who's swapping what, is he going to know what I'm talking about? And he actually knew exactly what I was talking about. I was like, yeah, Team Empire. They didn't change their roster. They're holding steady. He was like, oh, that's good. Yeah, Empire's been looking strong. Just like, holy shit, Winner's dad actually watches Dota. He knows what's going on. This is badass. I'm in a different land. That was kind of how my adventure started. And that was just a nice surprise, but pretty awesome. I tried the nasi lemak food. That's the only one that I remember specifically. The Malaysian dish, the country's prime cuisine, the official dish for the country. It's pretty good. It's some kind of chicken thing with some rice that's cooked with coconut oil. It was good, not great. The food was okay, very, very spicy. It is definitely one of those countries that if you're an American and you think, I kind of like spicy food, mild is definitely what you want to be ordering, if not the no spice level if they have that. There were a few times where I tried food that, oh, it's not that spicy, and I'm just like, I can barely eat this, man. Like, this is way too much. So that's just one of those things. But spicy food is pretty good. Things got really interesting on day 0, the day before the actual event. We were called over to the venue to do rehearsals, which not sure exactly what that was supposed to mean. Usually with like the live broadcasting stuff for events, there isn't really much of a rehearsal. Rehearsal implies you're doing some choreographed, like very coordinated thing, and kind of like, well, okay, maybe they're going to give us notes or sponsor plugs or whatever it is. And we showed up at the venue around 5 p.m. the day before, and we're very surprised at how little was set up. And we found the people in charge, and apparently there was some issue with the Ethernet cables. They came in delayed, so they were still running a bunch of cables. Thinking like, Jesus Christ, dude, this event starts in like, it's scheduled to start in like 16 hours. You guys are still laying down Ethernet cables. Like, at this point, you really want to be testing computers and doing like stress tests and that final setup, those little nuances, not like actually setting up desks and that kind of stuff. So that was a little bit of a red flag. We're like, all right, well, there's a chance tomorrow might start a little late, you know, not trying to be cynical, just sort of being realistic that, all right, let's show up early tomorrow, be prepared for there to be issues or delays, and make the best of it. So that's fine. We didn't really get to see too much of the setup. We got to see our desk, but we didn't have any computers on it yet, so there wasn't really too much for us to really look at or really acknowledge. So day 1, we get in there nice and early, and this is when the little bit of panic starts to set in. You show up, and we're like, okay, this is pretty cool. They've got a desk, and they have microphones, like just regular XLR mics on the little stands, kind of like this. And I'm thinking, all right, well, less than ideal, but we can make it work. You know, not very ergonomic. You got to lean forward, headsets. You really want the noise canceling for LANs, all that kind of stuff. Less than ideal, but workable. And they show us our 2 computers we're going to be broadcasting from, and Parker just sort of casually says, so which computer is going to be uploading to Twitch? And there's just sort of this mutual look of confusion across the staff members that we were talking to that kind of went, you guys are going to upload to Twitch? Really? You want to do that? We were just like, how do you not know that we want to do that? That's like the reason we're here is to broadcast this to Twitch. And it's kind of a thing in SEA events that they're a little bit notorious for, is that they put the vast majority of their effort into the live audience. You know, the live audience had a great time. There was really fun stuff on the stage, but they didn't really think about what the online presence would look like. I guess they sort of assumed that we would show up with the gear that we needed to do our own kind of Twitch production, which we could have brought gear for, but, you know, when someone says it's all taken care of, you'll have a producer and a director, you think, okay, there will be a producer producing the live stream. That's kind of what the producer does. And that just was not really the case. So picnic ensued, and I very quickly said, well, guess I'm going to install OBS right quick. And I installed OBS and got some overlays put together and got it all kind of squared away super fast. We just found a static overlay to use, and that is the underlying reason why the Twitch stream was shit. Why the Twitch stream had 0 production value and was literally just Dota 2 with no overlays and static white screen. Because I was literally like, okay, we need to start in 20 minutes. We better have something to at least stream the games. So we're already starting off on a rocky foot, and you can chalk it up to miscommunication, whatever it was, however this is the case. And there was just this moment where I remember one of the producers asked me, like, okay, so we're all good? And sort of thinking, like, I don't want to say that we're all good because this is far from what we would consider a good setup, but yes, we do have a workable stream of Dota 2, if that's the question you're asking me. And they just kept, I kept trying to explain what we needed. I said, what we want is a third computer that we just take an output from your video mixer and just upload that. It just encodes and sits there. And that is like, you're already mixing. You got all these nice cameras. You got all these nice microphones. We just want that feed into a computer. Like, well, how do we do that? I'm like, well, how about an HDMI capture card? No, we don't have one of those. I'm like, okay, well, that's unfortunate. Do you have a store nearby? We could just go buy one at this point. So that was the other reason we didn't have any camera feeds. There were a lot of cameras around, but we had no way to get it into our computer because we had no HDMI capture cards. We had no nothing. So that was kind of unfortunate. One of the other issues was that the microphones we had were hot in the venue the entire time. So we couldn't even talk to Twitch without our microphones coming out at the venue. So we couldn't podcast, we couldn't do anything to the Twitch stream that wasn't already being broadcast at the venue. So that's another limitation. Even just getting like the Dota TV audio was a little bit tricky. They brought in a guy to do dedicated obs, but didn't really think about how it would end up working out to get the video feed from the dedicated obs computer into a computer that is encoding. If you have it set up like that, you need capture cards. That's the way to do it. You need HDMI cables and you need HDMI capture cards. And we did not have any of those. So the dedicated obs didn't do any dedicated obs. We had 2 computers. One of them was doing dedicated ob. Like, one of the casters had to do dedicated obs for the stream on OBS, and the other caster, or the co-caster, was doing the dedicated obs for the feed that was going onto the main screen at the front of the venue that everybody in the venue was watching. That's one of the reasons why Winter struggled so much at this event, because he hates doing dedicated obs. He hates controlling the camera for when people can see it because he wants to move around quickly. He doesn't want to have to use brain power to think about, you know, am I capturing the right thing here? What's the audience looking at? Is my camera too jerky? He wants to just scoot around in team fights, catch the things that the play-by-play isn't casting, and, you know, add to the analysis by finding all those things around the map and not having to can be concerned with people watching the stream. That's really what the dedicated obs is for. So it's really inefficient to have both of your analyst and your play-by-play guy doing dedicated obs work, and there was just really no workaround for us. It wasn't really wired up in a way that we could find a more efficient way to do it. So that was really unfortunate. The other big problem with the setup was the lack of noise canceling. So the English casters were the actual casters for the event. We were the ones that were carrying the show, we were casting the games, and we were kind of the presenters outside of the MC. So if you can picture the venue, it's a square, you know, and then there's seating on 3 sides and the stage is up against the far side. We're at the bottom of the court facing the stage right before the stadium seating starts. So we're like prime positioning for the PA to be blaring at us. So we're talking into the PA through our microphones and hearing the PA system louder than we're hearing ourselves talk. And the PA is on about a half-second delay. And there's a term that somebody posted in one of the Reddit threads that for that thing, when you hear yourself a little bit delayed and then you feel like you need to correct yourself based on the delay instead of the real time. If you notice, like, we all talked, like, when Winter first got there was that thread, like, oh, Winter's drunk. It's like, no, he's not drunk. He just can't talk and listen to himself on a delay at the same time. It's surprisingly difficult. I've never really had to do it for a long period like that. Even if you watch the grand finals of the event, you kind of get used to it after a while, but not completely. There's certain words that I realize I really listen to myself when I'm talking. And like one of them is like Invictus Gaming, and in particular, those are the big ones. I'd be like, in particular, moving on, you know. All right, IG is going to be pushing like it sounds really goofy, but it's because you're hearing the PA louder than the person next to you. And normally you would have noise cancelers on, and then you have your co-caster routed live into your headset. So you hear them very clearly, and you can tune out everything else. There's a reason they use sports broadcasting headsets for big sporting events. The crowd doesn't drown you out. During the grand finals, I got some tweets from people saying, oh, you're too loud. I'm like, dude, I don't know if you realize how loud it is here. Like, whenever something breaks out, like in the Roche pit, you hear the huge bass and trumble from the fucking PA system that has the bass cranked up. You hear the audience just going completely apeshit, and I can't hear anything. Like, you get hyped up and you just start yelling. You have no gauge of how loud you're being. If I'm redlining the microphone, I can't even tell because the audio in the venue just sounds like this giant clusterfuck. 5,000 people all just going completely apeshit. So, the moral of the story here is you need noise-canceling headsets for broadcasters at events if they are in front of the PA system. Or you need to put them behind the PA system. It's got to be one or the other because it's very, very, very difficult. So those were some of the issues that were just problems with the setup of the venue that made things a little bit more difficult for us. You know, at least we had computers that had power, wired internet, and we could kind of make it happen. I felt so bad for Velat. I don't know if there was a miscommunication or they just did not expect the Russian casters to actually show up, but there seemed to be very little effort or prep time put into where the Russian broadcasting station would be and how it would be set up. I mean, we were like delayed and the game could be starting at any point, and I went over to Velat's desk and they still don't have any power. They finally get power and he's like, all right, where are my Ethernet cables? And they say to him, oh, we thought you were going to cast from Wi-Fi. Now, that sounds somewhat reasonable if you were to say, okay, I'm going to show up, I'm going to bring my laptop, I'm going to cast off that. But they provided Velat and the others and Adekvat with PCs that clearly did not have any kind of Wi-Fi cards. So it's like, if I'm using this computer to broadcast, how am I going to connect to the Wi-Fi? It just doesn't make any sense. And on top of that, why would you want to connect on Wi-Fi? That's not a good way to stream. You have Ethernet cables, just plug them in. The whole thing was just not very well thought out. And I just felt so, I thought he was going to blow a gasket. I didn't even watch the video. I know they made that video with Navi flaming the venue and all that kind of stuff. I didn't even watch it. I can only imagine what it said. He was rightfully pissed off. And the first day for him was just a total waste. He did almost nothing. There was nothing to cast. And by the time they finally got set up, the one game that we got to cast had already ended. And there were just massive delays. Now, the day one delays at the venue, it seemed to me like some of the issues were actually out of the control of the organizer. Everything I talked about just now is stuff that could have been fixed with better planning, better communication. We could have brought noise-canceling headsets. We could have brought mixers if we had known that this kind of gear wouldn't be available at our disposal. That's all stuff that could have been dealt with. But the big crippling problem at the venue was there was a big power issue. And I'm not privy to the details of if it is just bad wiring and it's just RNG that the big whatever transformer thing or a circuit blew just when we were using the venue, or if they had too much power routed onto one circuit, it melted something. But there was some big power surge that melted a significant part of the venue where they had to redo all of the cabling. There was some big problem where one of the switches got fried, so they swapped that out, and then they realized that there was an issue with the main server. The computers were rigged up for everything to boot off of this primary server that was there, and then everything loaded off of that, and then once the server crashed, none of the computers at the venue worked. So it wasn't just a lot of the computers didn't have hard drives. I forget the name for it. It's when you boot off the MAC address thing, whatever. I used to work in IT. I used to know what it was called, and I've forgotten because fuck that. But anyhow, once that server kind of imploded, that was when day one was like, we can't do this. We need to cut it here, and we're going to come back tomorrow and salvage the event. One thing that the venue or that the organizers did very well was deciding the right time to pull the plug. I mean, day one was a disaster. We spent a lot of time sitting around and waiting, but I'm glad they called it when they did. It would have been really frustrating if we had stuck around for another 4 or 5 hours and then they couldn't have made the fixes on day two. At least they got everything fixed, and then day two we came in somewhat fresh. Now, let's move forward to day two. So Mineski came in. They called Mineski. They came to help deal with some of the issues and even just to have more manpower to run the cables and get stuff fixed up. They swapped out all of the PCs. They brought in new computers. And I don't know why. The PCs that we had from the beginning were just fine. They worked great. We didn't have any issues streaming 720p on OBS. Not that that's the gold standard of quality, but they were okay computers. Now, I had an i7 at least. It was good quality. The computers they brought in were mostly i3s. a couple of i5s. I'm like, well, this is a downgrade. These computers look cooler, but I don't give a shit about that. I don't give a shit what the case looks like. I want processing power, baby. I want that 10 meg L3 cache. I don't want any of this 6 meg bullshit. I want to be recording locals and streaming at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Ugh, infuriating. So the worst part is that, okay, well, now I've got to reconfigure OBS. Okay, fine. It's not that hard. I do it. It's a new computer. I got to find all the files again. I sit down. I do it. And they're like, okay, well, we got to switch. We got to plug in this switcher. We got to reset the computer. I'm like, all right, no problem. Whatever. I go to get a drink. I come back. Turn on the computer, there's nothing there. And then I realize these new computers are still on LAN setting, where if you go to internet cafes over there, when you shut them down, they revert to a restore point so that, you know, you can install whatever you want while you're using it. Then when you shut it down, it's not fucked up for the last person. It goes back to the defaults. It works great for LAN cafes. It's super, super good. When you're at an event, it blows chunks because we were about to start, and I'm like, we don't have a stream. I don't have OBS anymore. It's not my fault, I swear. So I install it again. That's good. We do game number 1, whatever. And someone comes over and they need to put something in the back of the computer. They take the case off and they jiggle the power cable and the computer turns off. And I'm just like, oh my fucking God. 3rd time today, I'm going to reconfigure OBS. God damn it. Okay, fine. So I'm just like, at this point, kind of like fuming a little bit. And I was actually getting a little bit furious at the beginning of day 2. Day 1, we were kind of expecting it to be a little bit disorganized and not have things set up the way we wanted. And I thought we made it pretty clear that we have this working, but this is not the standard that we want to have for our stream, for the product that we produce. Like, we really need a way to get video feeds of the venue, to be able to show the post-game interviews, be able to show the entertainment from the MC during downtime. We need a way to broadcast this stuff. So coming into day 2, all this help came in. I showed up on day 2 like, okay, we're going to have an HDMI capture card. These guys know what's going on. I explained this very clearly. And we show up and I'm like, so where are we broadcasting from? And I couldn't get a clear answer. The best I got was, one of these computers is better than the others, but I don't know which one. I'm like, well, that doesn't fucking help me at all, man. Like, okay. Like, on top of that, like, do we have video feeds? Do we have anything? Am I just using OBS again? I asked 3 people, and all of them said, let me go find out. And then they fucked off and never came back. So I'm just, like, standing around waiting for... And then finally, Valat was like, dude, just install OBS. They're not going to do anything. Just do it. And I did, and I'm glad I did, but I had to do it 3 fucking times. It was very, very infuriating. So after we got it all set up, I instructed no one to touch the goddamn computer. Do not reset this thing. I'm not installing OBS for a 4th time today. And we just, you know, I had a Red Bull and just dealt with it and just decided to shut the fuck up, move on, take the high road. And, you know, at a LAN event, you really got to kind of zone that shit out, stay positive, and not let that kind of stuff get to you, because you still have to cast. You still have to interact with fans. You still have to be positive, smile, and really not let those things get to you when you're in front of the public eye. So we just kind of took it on the chin and dealt with it, even though it was rather infuriating. And once we got past the initial production issues on day 2 and we were all got over our disappointment of not having the camera feeds, it ended up being a great day. It was a lot better. Obviously, we ended somewhat on time, a reasonable hour around 10 o'clock. They had to play a lot of games simultaneously, so we did miss out on a fair bit of content, but you know, that's what you got to do when your schedule gets fucked for stuff that's out of your control and what have you. Day 2, though, I got to spend some time with the cosplayers. That was a lot of fun. There was a really good cosplay group that was there at the event. I was really blown away to see such an active group of cosplayers that were also supported by the event. Like, they were hired and brought there, and they, you know, had a whole schedule, and they hung out in the secret shop and took pictures. And the cosplays were pretty damn impressive. It was really cool. They had a Razor and a Warlock. They had, you know, the classics. You got a Crystal Maiden, your Wind Ranger, there's some TAs, that kind of stuff. But the Warlock in particular, I thought that was really cool. And the Razor, who apparently he couldn't see anything out of his mask. He didn't poke eye holes in it. So you talk to him and he just kind of nods and tries not to run into things. It was pretty funny. But I had a really good time. And moving into day 3, things were a lot better. So I want to kind of just give the overview of the way we went about the event, and then I have a lot of other little things and anecdotes that I need to talk about here that are just sort of ridiculous about my trip in Malaysia in general. So day 3, there isn't really too much to report of notoriety. At this point, it's pretty much, we know what's going on. Our expectation was, well, fuck it, we're going to use OBS. There's nothing we can do about it. We just have to deal with it and take the flame as it comes. And it's so irritating when you're at an event like that and you're just completely crippled by the gear that's at your disposal, because it's one thing if you don't own any of the gear. If I'm just a person and I'm flown out to be to be talent, and I'm like, well,
you didn't have what I wanted, but, you know, I don't have broadcasting headsets at my house. It's like, no, we have mixers, we have headsets, we have cameras. Like, we have more gear at the BTS house than we know what to do with. I've got gear coming out my ass. I got HDMI cables that can just wrap around the house 10 times over. There's no reason why we couldn't have just checked another bag and brought all the gear to really do a nice production. Even just bringing a camera. We said, well, what if we could get a webcam? Wouldn't that be great? Oh, that's great. We could at least show some, like, that's what the Vietnamese caster said. At least we could show some crowd shots, at least show our pretty faces in between games. Great idea. Hook it up. We say at the beginning of day 2, yo, could we get a webcam? That would be really helpful. We can't get the camera feeds, but a webcam would be great. Yeah, sure. We're on it. A minute before we're loading into the final game of day 2, this is like 9 o'clock p.m., someone comes trotting up with a brand new webcam in a box. Oh, we got the webcam, and they start jiggling the back of the computer. I'm like, I looked at the guy and said, do not touch that power cable. We are about to start this game, and you will kill my stream if you accidentally reset it. The cases were like the ones where to take the case off, you have to pull the power cable out, kind of a deal. I'm like, well, let's not install that right now. Let's put it in the parking lot. Let's install it at the beginning of day 3 when we can actually use the camera. Because here we're at the end of day 2. We're about to load into the game. Not going to cut to the camera now. I don't have time to install it on OBS. And once this game is done, we are turning the stream off right away and going back to the hotel. There's no fucking post-game. There's no messing around. This shit's done. See you tomorrow. Let's hope for a better day 3. So at least coming into day 3, we're pretty excited. Hey, we've got a webcam. This production quality is going through the roof. And I asked multiple people, hey, where's that webcam for you? Say, oh, I'm going to go find it. They fucked off and never came back. It's reminded me of China, the classic, like, oh, let me go ask my boss. That's the, like, oh, okay, great. So I'm not going to hear back from you. Is that what's happening here? So that was one little bit of silliness with the webcam. I don't even know what happened to it. I never saw the webcam on day 3. They bought it specifically for us, and then it just never got used. So maybe somebody stole it. Maybe somebody took it home. I don't know. One of the funnier parts of day 3 was the finals. It was switched from best of 5 to best of 3, mostly for scheduling issues. Apparently, the venue had to close at midnight, so they were worried a best of 5 would go too long, and didn't want to, you know, have an issue with having to close the venue while a series is still going on. I think it was the right call to change the finals to best of 3. They had a discussion with the teams. For some reason, they invited all the casters into the conversation. I'm happy to be included. I'm honored that my 2 cents is valuable, but at the same time, my opinion does not really matter for jack shit compared to the teams. You know, if I say it should be a best of 3 and the 2 teams agree adamantly that it should be a best of 5, I hope you don't listen to me because I'm just lower on the totem pole. Nobody should give a shit about what I have to say when, you know, the teams are the ones that really matter. My argument was just that you guys have recovered the vet pretty well. The one way to certainly fuck it into the ground is to do a best of 5 finals, and then 10 minutes into game 5, we go, okay, well, the cops are here. We've got to shut down the venue. We're going to flip a coin to see who wins. We'll see you later. Peace. And we just throw off the stream and peace out. Like, that is a shitstorm of unprecedented magnitude that would ripple into the ages of the Malaysian Dota scene. I saw that as just a danger, Will Robinson. Danger, danger, warning flags. The priority is to end this by midnight. And luckily we did. The finals ended up being a little bit stompy with IG taking it 2-0. But it went by pretty quick, so we kind of lucked out a little bit on that. And all things considered, it was recovered pretty well. Now, I want to talk about the general event and some of the observations I made in general. I want to say the support staff we had at the event was truly amazing. The guys that weren't involved with the tech setup, we all had handlers for kind of our group. There was always somebody lingering nearby that was there to kind of tell people to fuck off if we didn't want to do pictures and signings. They were there to get us food or drinks, whatever we wanted. It was obvious that the folks that ran this event have done events where they've had to work with celebrities that really expect to be coddled to, because they were very adamant about making sure we were comfortable and had everything we were needed outside of the gear that we wanted. But on, you know, for the day-to-day, the basic stuff, they were very, very helpful. And our one guy that was around for most of it was just so nice, and I almost felt bad asking him for stuff. At the end of day 2, my voice was getting a little rough. You know, I was doing a little too much yelling, and I said to him, I was like, hey, is there any way I could get some kind of a warm beverage? And he looked at me like, the fuck's a warm beverage? I'm like, you know, like a coffee, tea, even just lukewarm water, just something that's like a little bit, you know, soothing from my throat. And he goes, okay, I try. And he leaves, and he's gone for like 20 minutes, and he comes back empty-handed.
and I actually thought he was going to cry. It seemed like he just felt so genuinely bad that he was letting me down, that I look everywhere, I try, I go here, I go there, I went everywhere, there's no coffee, there's no tea, I don't know what to do, I'm so sorry. He apologized at least 10 times, just, I'm so sorry, I couldn't get you what you wanted, is there anything else I can get you? I'm like, dude, water's fine. It's really not a big deal. I've just, warm water would have been great. Regular water will certainly be sufficient. Don't worry. After a little time passed, I was like, how about a Red Bull? Can you get me a Red Bull? None of this Red Bull juice bullshit. I'm talking authentic, European-made Red Bull in a can. Can you get me one? He goes, Red Bull? Okay, I try. And he goes away, comes back 10 minutes later. He's got 2 Red Bulls. I'm like, okay, great. And before he hands them over, he apologizes because they're too cold. He's just like, I could only find cold Red Bulls. I know you wanted something warm, and these are really cold. I was like, it's okay, dude. Red Bull is meant to be cold. Now I'm just looking for caffeine. Forget about soothing my throat. You are too nice, sir. I appreciate it. You're taking too good care of me. It was just... It was so adorable. It was one of those times I was just melting inside. He was just like apologizing because my Red Bull was too cold. And I thought that was just... That was kind of hysterical and also just... absolutely adorable at the same time. He escorted me around a little bit. It was kind of interesting. I actually never ended up getting a pass for the event. We were supposed to get our VIP credentials and all that kind of stuff. I never got one. I just was able to walk around the venue. I walked all around the back, used the lift for VIPs, and nobody really seemed to care all that much. Maybe it's just because you stand out as kind of a white guy. I don't really expect people at venue security to recognize broadcasting talent. Same at TI. I had no idea who the talent and players were unless you had a badge. So it was kind of interesting that I was still able to get around, and I guess just wearing a blazer kind of makes up for that. You look like you've got authority. But it was really nice to have good support staff, and they were very cautious to make sure that fans didn't mob us or anything. And I did a lot of signings and that kind of stuff, and there was always somebody nearby to make sure I had what I needed. So that was a lot of fun. Now, let's talk about the hotel a little bit, because we had some very strange things happen at this hotel. I want to start with the first one on day 0. So Parker and I, we go to the little not orientation, the rehearsal on day 0. After that, we went back to the LAN cafe. We had dinner with Winner's parents. Then we come back, and probably like 11 p.m., maybe midnight or so, we come back to the hotel. We go up to our room, and we open the door, and the TV is on, and you can see some feet sitting on one of the beds. And we both kind of look at each other like, what the fuck? Okay, so we walk in, and there's just a dude in our room watching Harry Potter at midnight by himself. All of our stuff is in there. I'm looking around. I'm like, all right, that's my bag. That's my bag. That's my laptop. That's Parker's laptop. That's Parker's bag. Who the fuck are you? And why are you in my room? And then he goes, what do you mean? Why are you in my room? And I'm like, look at all this stuff, dude. Didn't you notice that? Why would one person bring 4 bags and 2 computers? You didn't think it was weird that there was underwear on the bed before you sat on it? And he was like, oh, no, they told me this was my room number. Like, well, clearly it isn't. So he called the tournament organizer, and it was some sort of a miscommunication. He had the wrong room number, and they gave him a room key anyway. That was a first for me. Never has there been a time that I've been to an event and the room numbers have gotten so messed up that they've actually given the other person a key. I've had it where we've had the same room numbers, but they won't give you a key unless your name's on the res. This was just like, he's actually in our room. So the kicker here is he packs up his stuff, he apologizes, realizes it's not his fault. It was just a miscommunication from down the chain. And he was working for the event. He was one of the handlers for Team IG, I think. So we realized that he didn't steal our shit or anything. My passport was still there. He just, had the wrong room. So he's just like, okay, he tells us, don't worry, guys, the shower's clean. I'm like, great. Thank you for not jerking off in our shower. That was really high on my priority list. I was really more worried about you stealing my laptop and passport, but thanks for letting me know that. So as he's packing up his stuff, he's watching part 1 of the final Harry Potter movie, The Deathly Hallows. So it's a pretty big movie in the Harry Potter series if you haven't seen it. And Parker and I are kind of like, oh, I like Harry Potter. All right, so we're like watching it, while, sitting in the room watching it while he's packing up his shit. And as he's leaving, there's probably like 15 minutes left in the movie, and he makes this really sad pouty face and kind of just goes, well, enjoy watching the rest of the movie. And we were just like, we will, motherfucker, now get the hell out. No, he didn't actually say that. We're just like, yeah, we will, thanks. And then he leaves. So we watched the end of Harry Potter. We're like, oh, okay. Later on, we just thought it was on TV. We realized that he actually bought Harry Potter. He, charged it to our room, paid $10 or whatever to watch part 1 of The Deathly Hallows, and it occurred to me that if you're paying $10 to watch this old-ass Harry Potter movie, you probably haven't seen it. So we kicked him out of our room like 10 minutes before the creepy guy with no nose ends up finding the Elder Wand. I'm just like, oh no! Now we ruined his Harry Potter experience. And after we realized that we felt bad, we were like, we should have invited him to stay. We could have had a Harry Potter party. Oh, this could have been awesome. And instead, we watched Harry Potter by ourselves. And, well, that was it. So we didn't realize it till later. I felt kind of bad for the guy afterwards, but, you know, what are you going to do? It's not like we had to pay for it. It was paid for by the organizers anyway. He could have rented Harry Potter in his own room. Still, I still don't if I got a key to a room and I opened it and there was shit everywhere and there were 2 laptops, I would think, I wonder if there's people in this room. Maybe I should go double check and see if this is really the room I'm supposed to be. That's just me. You know, I don't want to speak for what you should or shouldn't do, what have you. So that was fun. That was interesting. So now I got to talk about the toilets. It wouldn't be a Zyori podcast if we didn't talk about porn or poop. And we're going to do it here. So, our room smelled a little moldy. Malaysia is very warm, very humid, and it seemed pretty common for places to have a little bit of a moldy smell to it, especially if the AC wasn't turned on. There's just a little mold everywhere, you know, a little moldy. So I'm like, okay, that's all right. Our room smells like mold. It smells kind of like crap. I'm just going to assume it's Parker's feet, and it was. But it got worse. I'm like, how are your feet getting grosser? And he's like, I'm wearing flip-flops. They should have aired out all day. Well, I'm not really sure that's how foot fungus works, but okay, whatever you say, Parker. Then I realized that when we showered, the drain didn't work quite right. So you would take a shower, and then you come back at the end of the day, and there's still a little bit of water on the floor. I'm like, well, no wonder this room smells mildewy. The drain doesn't work in the shower. Okay, it works enough. It's not flooding, whatever, fine. I'll deal with a little mildewy smell. We'll just crank up the AC and just kind of try to not smell the room while we're sitting in there. So after like the first 2 days, you know, we're there. Parker and I are just being normal people. Normal people poop. The toilet gets clogged. I'm like, okay, whatever. We clogged the toilet. Call maintenance. The guy comes in with a little plunger, punches the fuck out of it. That's great. So at the end of day 2, we come back to the room. And that morning, I'm going to be honest, I knew the toilet was having some issues. I had to poop real bad. And I said to myself, well, it's poop in the toilet, poop in the shower, or cork it. I'm going to poop in the toilet and YOLO. So, of course, I did. It kind of flushed, but didn't go all the way down. Left it there, came back at the end of the day, and our room actually smelled like a cooked turd. I'm not even joking. It smelled like somebody took the turd, put it in the oven, and cooked it on 400 for 20 minutes. It was terrible. Absolutely terrible. It was like eye-watering to be in there. It was just, and then like mixing that with the mildew, and we were just like, all right, this is fucked. So we went downstairs and said, yeah, our toilet, well, we called the downstairs, said, our toilet's clogged. We need help. Please send help immediately. So this guy, because this is at like 11 p.m., we had come back from casting all day. We're fucking beat tired. All we want to do is have a beer and go to bed, and we're sitting in our poopy room trying to hold back the tears. So this guy comes up, and he's wearing, like, you know, nice clothes. He's got, like, kind of a suit on, and he doesn't have a plunger in his hand. So I open the door, I'm just like, you don't look like the maintenance guy. So he comes in, he's like, so I understand you're having a problem with your toilet. And I'm like, yeah, it's a big shitty disaster. This is like verbatim. I was like, yeah, it's a shitty disaster in there. You're welcome to investigate, but I warn you, it's rather gross. So the guy goes into the bathroom, lifts up, like, peeks under the lid, and just goes, yeah, fuck that. I am not, this is beyond my pay grade. And then he tells us, so here's the problem. Maintenance is not 24 hours. They leave at like 8 o'clock. So we're just going to go ahead and give you a new room. I'm like, damn, I should have shit in this toilet 3 days ago. They upgraded us to a deluxe room on the 15th floor because we clogged our toilet with poop. So, as it turns out, they were having a plumbing issue. It was not our giant fatty American feces that clogged the toilet. It was just the drain in our room was totally fucked. It was clogged just from water being in there. So it was nice going into a room that didn't smell like shit. And after that, my experience in the hotel really got a lot better. So I don't know what the moral of that story is, but it was terrible. It was actually terrible. So, yeah, stay away from room 1407 if you're ever in the iCity Best Western. Now, let's talk about the real kicker that is this hotel. And I think most of you know what this is. Good old Zyori's debit card. Now, I pulled a Merlini this event. I did not take out any cash when I got there. I tried. I forgot to tell my bank that I was going to Malaysia. When you do that, it has a security thing. You have to say when you're traveling, your charges get denied. So I tried to use an ATM. Didn't work. Parker got money out. He's like, that's fine. We've got plenty of money for now. I'll just pay for your food. Whatever. And most of our food was paid for by the organizers. Like, okay, cool. So we're like, you know, day 2. I'm like, you know, I don't even think I'm going to have to pull money out. Parker's like, yeah, I've got more money than I know what to do with. Most of our meals are comped. All of our transportation is covered. So really wasn't much we had to spend money on. So I was fine with no money, just carrying around my credit cards for an emergency. Final day. All right, we find out there's an after party. I'm like, oh, good. I didn't know, but great. There's going to be an after party. Oh, it's at our hotel. Even better. I don't have to go anywhere. I had an early flight. I was leaving at 10:30 a.m. I was one of the first ones to leave. Parker's still there. He was staying for a few days later to hang out with some of his friends in Singapore. So I was traveling alone on my way back. No big deal. I'm happy to travel alone. It's not a problem, but one of my big concerns is always transport to the airport, especially in a foreign country. That's one thing that is almost always provided for you when you're traveling somewhere abroad for an event, because you don't know how to pay for a taxi. You don't know how to talk to taxi drivers. You don't really know what the airport's called. You don't know which terminal you're in or where you're going. There's just a lot of question marks with traveling and getting to airports and that kind of stuff, especially in KL. They've got 2 airports. They kept saying, are you at the new one or the old one? I'm like, I don't know. I'm at the one that has Cathay Pacific. They're like, well, they have that at both. I'm like, I'm at the international one. They have that at both. I'm like, how am I supposed to know? I don't know. Stop yelling at me, please. I just want to get on the plane. So I'm at the after party, and I'm thinking, all right, there's probably shuttles or some shit. Everybody's leaving, whatever. And I'm talking to one of the guys, one of the main guys that's in charge. And I say, hey, man, this is like 2 in the morning. You know, I knew I had to leave at like 7:30 or 8. It's like an hour to get to the airport. So I'm committed. I'm like, all right, I'm drinking now. I'm staying up all night. I'm going to be drunk on the airplane. It's going to be awesome. Our star ladder ritual. I'm doing it. The dream is real. 3 o'clock, I bumped into the guy. I'm like, so how do I get to the airport? What's the plan? Is there a transport? And he says, oh, you have to leave that early? Okay, no problem. Yeah, we'll arrange you a taxi. It's all paid for us. We'll meet you in the lobby at 7:30. I'm like, so I'll meet you? He's like, yeah, it should be me. If it's not me, just look for someone else in a Major Allstars shirt, and they'll get you all squared away. I'm like, okay, perfect. 7:30, iCity, Best Western Lobby. I'm fucking there. Boom. So I go back to my socializing, have a few too many martinis, hang out, listen to Drunk Era, tell me all about talking shit to Aloha Dance, and all sorts of other goodies. It's a great time. Fun party. So, 7 o'clock rolls around. I say my goodbyes to my dear friends downstairs, the Vietnamese casters, Moose, all the other guys hanging around. I go upstairs. Parker's passed out. I pack up my shit, take a little 20-minute power snoozer, set the alarm for 7:30, pop up, head downstairs, and there's nobody in the lobby. I'm like, all right, well, there's a little bit of boozing last night. Maybe you overslept a little bit. I'll give it 5 minutes. I'll give it 10 minutes. Then the CSW guys come downstairs, and I'm, yes! Finally, my team has arrived. We're going to the airport. I'm like, hey, fellas, what's going on? Y'all ready to go to the airport? They're like, airport? The fuck are you talking about? We're going to the train station, motherfucker. I'm like, oh, okay, just convenient timing. All right, cool. Well, good to see you, you know. And then I realized it's 7:45. I needed to leave for the airport 10 minutes ago. There's still nobody down here. How do I get a taxi? I go to the front desk. Can you call me a taxi? And they're like, well, maybe. I'm like, can I pay for a taxi with a credit card? No. Okay, can you charge my credit card and give me some cash? No. Okay, can I pay you for a taxi with my credit card that you pay for with cash? No. I'm like, okay, how the fuck can you get me to the airport with this here credit card? Because I'm going to miss my plane if I don't leave now. And they're like, oh, okay. And they start making some calls, speaking in Malaysia. I don't know what the fuck they're saying. Apparently they have some shuttle. I give them my credit card. They charge me 180 ringgit. It's like $50 or $60 American for a shuttle. It's like a bus. It's a full, not a bus, it's a van. It's a full shuttle just for me. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, that's kind of a lot of money to get to the airport, but I'm more like, you know what, fuck it. I just need to get there. I'll deal with this later. I'll send them an invoice, whatever. At this point, I am furious that I'm being stood up to get to the airport. Like, I was fuming. I'm talking to the guy. I'm just like, motherfucker, goddamn piece of shit. They stood me up to get to the airport. I don't know what to... I'm just like, you know, at this point, I'm still kind of intoxicated, too. So I'm just like, I'm retarded. I don't know what's going on or where I'm going. So I get in this van. I'm driving to the airport with this guy, and I'm feeling okay. I'm like, okay, I made it. I'm looking at my clock. I'm like, all right, there's not too much traffic. I think we're going to make it. I have no idea. And he pulls up to the airport, and he's just like, well, which one are you? The new one or the old one? And we go over the whole thing about how I'm not from around here. I have no fucking clue. He calls somebody. They figure it out. And he just drops me off at some place and says, okay, just go up to the 5th floor. I'm like, all right, well, hopefully I'm in the right place. And it turns out that I was in the right place. And I made it, and it's good. I check into the flight. Everything's cool. I'm there with plenty of time. I get a little biscuit. It's great. I'm sitting there waiting for my plane. I finally made it. So I'm living the dream, you know, a little hungover. It's not that bad. I've been up all night. I sleep on the short little puddle jumper over to Hong Kong. I've got an hour and a half layover, so get some nice spicy beef udon from this wonderful Korean restaurant. Filled up my belly with some big fatty noodles. I'm like, oh, that was the perfect hangover food. Pounded a vitamin water, took a piss, got on the 12-hour flight back to LAX, sat in the window seat. I didn't even get up once. Didn't have to pee, didn't have to throw up. It was great. I just slept, watched movies, and just lived the dream. I had a middle seat, but I lucked out. It was a married couple that were in that row on either side, and they were like begging me to give them the middle seat. They're like, please, please, we're husband and wife. We want to sit together. And I was like, okay, no problem. I'm happy to take the window. And they were just like, thank you so much. And the wife sat in the middle. Even better, this little Asian girl, she didn't use the armrest. She sat on her feet the whole time. I had unlimited space. Oh, it was the dream for a 12-hour flight. So anyway, I get back to America. I'm feeling great. Everything's good. Hanging out with my friends. One of our guys picked us up. I wake up the next morning, and I'm on a call with our website guys, you know, and I'm just chatting with them, and I'm going to send them a file. So I open up my email and go, huh, that's a lot of funny-looking charges. I don't remember spending hundreds of dollars on hotels, and I'm looking at them, and it's just within a string of 10 minutes, like 11:40 p.m. to 11:50 p.m., the night before, like the night when I was back in America, the 24th, yesterday, there's like 6 charges for values ranging between like $130 to $200, somewhere in that range. It was more than 6, actually. It was more like 8. And it was weird because I got the email saying they were charged, but then I looked at my bank account and only 1 or 2 of them had gotten through. I'm like, all right, well, this looks pretty suspicious. Then I looked at the names, and they were all different hotels. It was like, actually, I can pull it up right now. I don't need to make this up. We've got the Caroline Hotel, the Mirage Hotel, the Imperial Inn, the Muse Hotel, Crown Hotel, the Stay Burger Suite, the Beijing Hua Heya Feyajuma. Where I've never even heard of these places. So luckily ING doesn't suck. They're really good at cybersecurity, and they saw the first one and they go, this looks a little suspicious, and they blocked all the other ones, and then I was able to do a chargeback to the ones that got through, and they're like, oh no sir, this was very obvious suspicious behavior. They had even left me a voicemail that morning at 5 a.m. that I didn't get because I was asleep. So my bank was on it. They were on point. So now I'm thinking back, I'm like, okay, my credit card got stolen in Malaysia. That's not the most outlandish thing I've ever heard. Big heart, Red Zella, appreciate it, man. So I'm thinking, you know, that's not the most uncommon thing ever. I was told in Ukraine, like, be careful where you use your credit cards. People can steal the number, that kind of stuff. You prepare for that when you're traveling to countries that you've never been to, like this kind of stuff. But it's a little bit less scary when you go, okay, I used my credit card literally one time. There's none of this like, oh, it could have been the vendor at the venue. It could have been the guy that saw my credit card. It's like, no, I handed my credit card to literally one person, the clerk at the front desk. It was probably the guy that unclogged our toilet. Maybe that's why he stole my credit card, because he was so fucking pissed off that he had to smell the shitty bathroom and deal with the shitty toilet after we left. But that was the only time I used it. So it had to have been the hotel, unless there was some other weird security breach. And I was thinking, like, well, if the hotel stole it, they weren't very subtle about it because they just passed it around to all their fucking hotel friends. And on top of that, why would someone book multiple hotel rooms at different hotels within a string of 10 minutes? It was like, it's like you're the worst thieves ever. If you'd been a little more subtle, I might not have noticed right away, and you might have gotten away with it. At least a little bit of it, but you're just like, chug, 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 chug. Here's $1,000 in random hotel charges that no one would ever buy. Makes no sense to me. So that was fun. I got to deal with that. I don't know. I really don't know what to make of it. You know, the organizers apologized to me. Supposedly they're trying to help work on it. I don't know what the fuck they think they're going to do about it. My bank's already taking care of it. I'm not actually out any money. Well, a little bit for now, but I should get reimbursed for it. So it's really no big deal. I sent out that tweet less of like a, oh, poor me, my money got stolen, and more of a, I'm okay, and I hope the rest of you are okay, because I saw many of our colleagues there using their credit cards for everything. And it seems like most other people were okay. I don't know if it's the hotel. I don't know if it was just the one guy that was there that took a fucking picture of my credit card. I don't know what it was, but stay away from the Best Western and iCity in Malaysia. You will regret your decisions between the poopy bathrooms and the terrible service and the people stealing your credit cards. You just want to stay somewhere else. That's my 2 cents. Don't roll the dice. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it. So Whew, that's pretty nice. The other thing about Malaysia that's crazy, it's so fucking hot. It's unbelievably hot there all the time. And I feel like I didn't bring enough clothes. I feel like I'm just constantly sticky and sweaty. I've never appreciated a shower as much as I have in Malaysia. It's like the 5 minutes where you just feel like you de-stickify. You know? Even though it lasts for like 5 minutes, once you go outside, you just start sweating again. But it was pretty crazy. The other thing I noticed about Malaysian culture is it seems to be a little more okay to make fun of fat people. Like, there was, the MC was on the main stage, and he was doing giveaways, and he was filling time, doing classic MC stuff, and there was a time when he had people on the stage where it was like 4 girls and 4 guys, and one of the guys he wasn't even really that fat, he was just a little chubby, he had a little belly, you know, and the guy started saying he looked like Storm Spirit. And it wasn't just like, oh, you look like Storm Spirit, bro. Oh, you should work out. It was like extended. He started doing Storm Spirit lines, just like, oh, puddin' pop, puddin' pop. He's like making fun of this guy on the stage. And the guy doesn't even seem embarrassed. He's just laughing along. The whole crowd's cracking up. He's making Chuan jokes, all this kind of stuff. And there was a point in the grand finals, I think. Maybe it was on the last day. I don't know if it was the grand finals. But we made a Chuan joke where it was the game that was going on pretty long. And there were like 3 or 4 cheeses. And it was one on the ground. I'm like, gods, they are hungry. Or maybe not. The cheese is still on the ground. And Parker pauses for a second and just goes, well, I've never known Chuan to not be hungry, zing! And of course the crowd starts cackling. They're all like, rah, 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 it's so funny, you made fun of the fat boy. And Parker was like, you know, if we were anywhere else, I don't think I would have made that joke. It felt a little distasteful, but after seeing that Storm Spirit shit on the stage, it just felt so okay that I thought I could get away with it. I'm like, dude, I feel you. I mean, I was baiting him hard. I was just like, they're hungry, there's cheese on the ground, you're gonna, and we went for it, so that was pretty exciting. But it was still weird. I mean, there aren't a lot of fat people over there, so maybe it's just sort of a cultural thing that it was all right, but it was pretty odd. You know, I have to say, I did make friends with Chuan this event a little bit. On the Saturday night, there was this barbecue at the hotel, and we were waiting out for the food. And I told him, I was like, God, I'm so hungry, man. He was just like, I know, me too. And it was like 7:20 or so, and I was like, they told me the food will be out at 7 o'clock, and he just goes, oh, Malaysian time. I'm like, yeah, apparently that's a real thing. Whatever time you say this is going to start is the time they start thinking about starting it. So if they say, oh, yeah, the barbecue's going to be ready at 7, 7's like the time they start heating up the grill for the barbecue. If you ever are there, that seemed to be a recurring theme of just like, oh, yeah, we'll be there at 7. 7's like the time they get in their car to leave to pick you up, not the time that you're expected to be at the door to be taken to wherever you're going. But it was pretty funny. I was looking at the array of stuff they had at the barbecue, and there was sotong was there. It's like some sort of squid thing. There were these little circles. I had a feeling it was squid, but I was like, Chuan, what is this? And he said, it's sotong. I'm like, well, I can read. I know it says sotong, but what the fuck does sotong mean? And he's like, I don't know what it's called in English. I'm like, okay. I was like, is it seafood? He said yes, and he just said, is nice. And it reminded me so much of our intern, Roland, who's from Malaysia. That's the way he would say food. He'd say, oh, when I asked him if he, oh, so nice, man, it's so nice. So I'm like, all right, if Chuan says it's nice, I'm going for it. I tried it, and it is pretty fucking good. It's crazy how available squid is, too. But there is squid everywhere. It's like, in America, you can get squid, and you can get calamari, but it's sort of like it's sort of a special thing, or it's like a nice restaurant will have it, but you don't just go everywhere expecting there to be squid. This is like, at the venue when they had catered food, it's like, okay, here's some fish, here's some beef, here's some squid. It's like 2 of the 3 days there was a squid platter. It's all about the little suckers, the octopus. I mean, I'm okay on squid, but I'm not a big fan. It's just another one of those interesting little things that I noticed. The other thing that was funny to see how people reacted to the NIP manager, Marie, the tall, blonde Scandinavian manager. There are just no tall, blonde women in Malaysia. I don't think I saw any that aside from her. And I saw like a bunch of her autographs and stuff. And at the party on the final night, VIPs, it was like TI, where VIPs came to the party, then all the staff and talent and players and stuff were invited as well, and it was an open bar and all this kind of stuff. And I was just chatting with her, and people kept coming up just like, can I get a picture with you too? And it's just like such a random mix. There's like a team manager and one of the English casters just like, sure, I'll take a picture with you. But it was just everyone just, tall, hot, blonde girl, I gotta get a picture with her. It was pretty funny. And I can't tell you how many times people told Parker he was tall. You'd think that goes without saying, but just that, wow, you're so tall. He's just like, I know, I'm so tall and so white. I stand out like a sore thumb around here. And the other funny thing at the after party was they had like a champagne ceremony where the IG players were supposed to shake up the champagne and spray it all over the crowd. And of Of course, anytime that happens in esports, it's usually kind of a backfire. They do it at DreamHack, and there are countless videos of esports champagne fails, of people going, like, you see the organizer hand it to them, and they go, now what do I do with it? I've never opened a champagne bottle before. Then they start shaking it up, and they're like, I don't know what to do with it. So Schwan, he starts shaking it. It won't pop out. He starts shaking it. And they're just like, what the fuck? He starts shaking it. And behind him, they've got a table with kind of like the flutes, glasses like this, and they're all stacked up. It's like a, you know, a bottom piece, and there's tiers. There's like 5 tiers, and then there's the one glass on the top. Twan's shaking, elbows go flying, and he knocks over half the glasses. I'm not even lying. Before any bottles were popped, half of the champagne glasses were broken. It was hysterical. Oh my god, I'm laughing so hard. There's crap coming out my nose. It was pretty funny. I wish I was filming it. I have not laughed that hard in a while. And they popped the bottles. We all had champagne, and we continued the boozing. Overall, the event was a lot of fun. There were a lot of technical issues, a lot of things that the organizers could have done better. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I mean, for us as talent, it's a little bit easier. When stuff goes wrong, we can always just fall back into taking pictures with fans, doing signings, and just interacting with people. And I was still just really blown away by the amount of fans that we have in that part of the world. I mean, there were a lot of people that were huge fans of BTS, but I was surprised by the amount of people that were also just like diehard Zyori fans. More than one person told me, you're the reason I watch Beyond the Summit. And I don't know if that's true. That might just be hot air because they're trying to butter me up, but that's not a compliment you get very often, you know? And that's one that I almost feel is like, you're that much of a, like, fuck all the other guys that are good and casters that are better than me here, but you, sir, you are the reason that I watch Dota. I'm like, wow. I'm honored, but at the same time, just baffled that I have that kind of an appeal to some people out there. It was really humbling and really quite incredible. So that is the kind of thing I'm going to carry with me for a little while, and I'm excited to be back in the studio, ready to cast some more good Dota. We had a really good time, though. I had a good time hanging out with Winter. He's a lot of fun. It's interesting seeing Winter in his home court, you know, the home court there, because he's a lot more serious. When we brought him in for DAC and stuff, we're pretty good friends with him, so we're making jokes, and we have the little box, and we're a lot more lighthearted and just poke fun and this kind of stuff. And over there, that's not Winter's brand, dude. He's like the serious, like he's the competitor, and like when he takes pictures, he doesn't smile. He makes that killer, like, you wouldn't fuck with me kind of a face, you know? I'm sitting there just like, oh, America, yeah! I'm just like cheesing my ass off in every picture, and Winter's just like that's his picture pose, and it's just funny. We're sort of making fun of him. I'm just like, dude, I'm gonna find all the pictures of me smiling and you looking tough, and just do a thug life video of just like, thug life, motherfucker. It's like, and then Winter. Like, he's just hysterical, but he's got a lot of fans, man. There's a lot of Winter fans there. It was really fun. I was also really surprised by the amount of people that apologized to me on like behalf of Malaysia, on behalf of the tournament, on just like, I'm so sorry you came all the way to Malaysia and this really sucked. Like, the amount of tweets from people that were just like, oh my god, I'm so sorry your information got stolen. Like, I hope that you don't think poorly of Malaysia and that you'll come back in the future. I mean, obviously a lot of cultural pride there, but I was just blown away by the amount of people that reached out to say, I'm so glad that you're here. I really appreciate you, like, helping bring light to esports in Malaysia. And I'm sorry that all these issues arose and you came all the way here. And that is just not something you encounter out in the West very often, in terms of like people apologizing on behalf of others, like that kind of cultural pride and stuff, and just like being thankful that events are coming to your region and bringing more attention to your scene. It was just very different and very one of those just eye-opening, like, wow, that's really cool. That's really powerful, and I really appreciated that. It was really nice. It was a good event. It really warmed my heart and kept that esports fuel going, man. I really hope to go again, and you know, even though a lot of shit went wrong and the event could have been a lot better, I would happily go again to another event in SEA, certainly in Malaysia or wherever, and do it all again. Except this go around, I would probably bring a lot of backup gear with me. Even if they say that it's all going to be good, I'm bringing headsets, I'm bringing cameras. We're not going to fucking do that shit again where I show up just like, oh, so I should have brought my HDMI capture cards, but I didn't because, You told me not to. Why did I listen to you? I should have just thrown them into my bag. It's not like they take up a lot of space. The organizers, it was their first time doing a Dota tournament. They fell into the trap that a lot of tournament organizers do in terms of assuming that running a Dota event is the same as doing like a live concert, all these other kind of events, and it's just a completely different beast. There's all these other nuances that you have to consider. Dota TV audio, having the mics wired into one PC, the live stream, just the way you handle the schedule, the quality of the internet connection to the computers. It's just a different beast. And you just have to remember that the live audience is not the only thing that you're catering to. You have to make sure your live audience have a good time and the event's entertaining for the people there, but you can't forget about the people at home. You can't forget about the hundreds of thousands of people that want to watch their favorite players and that want to see your event. They want to see the interviews. They want to see the MC. They want to be able to experience the event, see the camera shots, see what the venue looks like. And when you don't provide that on a stream, you're selling your own product short. You're doing yourself a disservice more than you're doing us, the casters, a disservice, you know? So I think if they end up doing another Major All-Stars or Major All-Stars 2, there are definitely a lot of things to improve upon, and hopefully they'll take heed to some of our advice and some of the other criticisms that came their way, and you know, can make it bigger and better. So with that, I pretty much wraps up this podcast. Like I said, I had a great time, and so glad that so many of y'all turned out and made me feel good about myself. Really had a fun time. It was really quite good. I'm stuttering here because I'm skewing over my notes to see if there's anything else that I missed that I wanted to make mention of, and I think I pretty much covered it. I actually made a good list here of all the things I wanted to cover, and I think that's it. So this puts another Zyori podcast in the books. If you enjoyed the podcast, please find it on iTunes. It's one of the best ways to support the podcast, to rate and subscribe through there. I'll go ahead and drop a link in chat for y'all. And of course, you can find me at ZyoriTV on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube is ZyoriTV1. This video is going to be uploaded there momentarily here. If you joined us late, there will also be the audio-only version uploaded on Zyori.tv, the home of the Zyori podcast here, coming up in just about an hour's time. So that's it, guys. That's it for this podcast. Be kind to yourselves and be kind to each other. We'll catch you on the next podcast.